Up Columbia crew. Now, here's your host, Tom Bradley.
It's Friday, and it's good to be here. 8:09. Earlier this morning, Nikki Garman walked in and found an inanimate, but scary nonetheless, skunk positioned on the floor near her chair. An investigation has ensued. Now, we welcome to the studio now Boone County Sheriff Dwayne Carey. Sheriff Carey, I appreciate you putting this on the front burner on your schedule. As things we talk about crime and we talk about violent activity in and around Boone County, and obviously this is a big deal. What would you lend to this investigation this morning?
You guys are a fun group.
There's the Law and Order theme again. Very good. Now, is it true that I could be busted here for not sharing more information? I told her I didn't put the skunk there.
You could not be, but we would probably take you up to the sheriff's department, get you in an interview room, and we would want to talk to you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. I don't like the idea of you talking to me a little bit more. You're bigger than me, man. That's scary. Is there anything that I could do already? You see that I'm not doing anything illegal, Nikki.
No, I feel that it is.
Well,
I think that it could be in the aiding and abetting category.
No.
You allowed it to happen. This is your studio. You said that earlier.
I didn't incite the placement of a skunk?
No, but you didn't prevent it, and then you're not revealing the source of who did. And really, this could almost be shifted more towards a bullying category.
Bullying?
Because being the only female around here, I get picked on excessively.
Oh, I think you hold your own, young lady.
You
get picked on excessively.
Yeah, I do. I do.
You.
It is Sheriff Carey. It's great to have you in this morning. We appreciate it. Apologize about the miscommunication earlier this week, and thank you for making it work out today.
Not
very
a problem.
much. This is probably several weeks of an ongoing discussion in which we're bringing a couple different people in the studio, reading some different information brought to us, which goes back before a press conference held in Columbia where we were looking at a lot of the violent criminal activity.
Right.
Shots fired again, drive-by shootings, firefights happening, and then the 10th and Broadway, downtown Columbia, 12:30 on a Friday night with a lot of people out downtown, and a shooting that occurred out there. A murder that happened outside of a laundromat on Connolly Road next to the Hy-Vee over there. These things really have us all up on our toes going, what the heck's going on?
Right.
A press conference is held in Columbia with the city leaders. I recognize that you are a county official. The city leaders stepping up in a very, what I would call a disjointed press conference. There was no announcement at all. It was extremely disjointed. It left me feeling worse than beforehand. I'm going to start off right there. I'm sure you had a chance. Either you were there in person or you got to pick it all up afterwards. Did you feel good about the way the city leaders of Columbia are focusing on this and have a handle on it or not?
I did not go, but I did DVR it. So when I got home that night, I took a look at it. I can tell you that I got an email from a pretty influential person in Columbia that said the PR person that put that together should be fired. And so, I kind of thought that it was thrown together. And this is with all due respect. I didn't agree with a lot of the stuff that was said virtually throughout. I mean, I think Laura Nauser probably has the best grasp of it because in her first term, she did a lot of work with a juvenile task force. She tried to get people together, and then when she ended up losing that, and then now she's back in, I don't know if she's going to fire that back up again, but yeah, I was a little frustrated by it, because this is not rocket science to solve this problem. I mean, it's proactive law enforcement. That's going to solve the problem. And so I was out of town Monday and came back, and I guess they were talking about, and maybe you can help me with this, but they were talking about it's going to take about a year to get this going.
The task force.
You don't need a task force. I mean, all you need to do is put some cops out there stopping cars, doing search warrants. It's going to solve the problem, and that's going to be my repetitive theme throughout our conversation today, is this isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, go back to 2012. We had about 10 shootings, with the last one being at Chuck E. Cheese. 2011, we had a bunch of shootings. I mean, it's ever since 2010 when they had the Kinlock incident, they haven't been doing drug search warrants. I think there's probably going to be some information coming out about that here in a short period of time, where they're just not doing tactical warrants. They're not doing drug search warrants. And the criminals know. I mean, we know this through informants that you can do about whatever you want to do in the city of Columbia, because the Columbia Police Department is not doing all that proactive law enforcement. Please don't think that it's the officers. They've got great people down there. They're just following the directives of their administration. And I'm not banging on the chief down there. He and I have a different philosophy on how things are supposed to be done. But the bottom line is, if they would go out and do proactive law enforcement, we could solve this problem in a short period of time. I'll go back to around January or February.
When you were in here.
Right. Talking about we're going to go into the city. We went into the city doing proactive saturations. And what that means is we had deputies volunteering their time on their days off for overtime to jump into 2-person units in a car. And all they did is they went into the city making car stops on people that we know are associated with this type of activity. We ended up over a 3-month period of time from beginning of February to the end of May, made over 100 arrests in the city. Wow. Now, if I've got some wood, I'm going to knock on it, but I'll tell you that there were a bunch of shootings that were occurring. When we started doing that, informants come back and tell us, Brown's rolling hard. We're in Sheriff's Department, brown uniform, Brown's rolling hard, and all of a sudden the shootings die off. Then at the end of May, because my folks are exhausted, I don't have a plethora of people that I can throw at city problems. They're tired. They want to spend time with their families on days off, so they're not volunteering for overtime again. I end the special saturation. And then, again, knock on wood, maybe it's coincidental, but all of a sudden shootings start back up again. Because I heard Brian Liebhardt on your show last week, and I've listened to your show quite a bit the last couple of weeks. Actually took notes on some callers. But Liebhardt, I think, said it best. You have to get in the criminals' business. You know, they have to know that every time they jump in the car and they're going from one spot to another, they might get stopped by law enforcement. Can't take these stolen guns. Can't have the drugs in the car. You know, can't be doing that because I might get stopped. Right now, they just tool around wherever they want to go.
You know, Sheriff Carey, the big difference between you talking to us right now and everybody else I'm talking to is that you are in charge of a full government law enforcement agency, but I'm hearing stuff behind the scenes from people that cannot come forward. I've got emails from people that can't come forward. I've got communication with people that are retired and finally will come forward. All these other people, you right now are living it, and you're saying the same thing they're all telling me, which is proactive police work, like Brian put it, getting in the criminal's business. Now, you have been doing this. Is there a chance that some of the things that we've seen this spring that have alerted us again, which brought about the press conference downtown, is there a chance that we're actually on a downslide of it because of all the work you guys have done out of the county sheriff's department in the last 6 months?
No, because, again, people need to understand I have a 2-person drug unit. 2 people in my drug unit. I have 2 people in my proactive unit. I don't have, like an 8-person drug unit. I don't have, 3 2-man cars that can go out and do nothing but car stops. So, everybody talks about being short of people. The bottom line is you always, and this has been the history of law enforcement, you have to work with the people that you have. It's just like some teams don't have a great starting lineup. You got to go out and play the game with the best lineup that you have. Same thing. I'm down 6 spots on the road. Doesn't matter. We still have to do our job. And so I don't know that we put a dent in it, but the dent pops back out when you take it to the shop and get the dent pulled out again. I mean, it's going to be a reoccurring thing. And again, I've lived here all my life, care about the community. Been at the Sheriff's Department for 24 years this December. This isn't new stuff. We've had this before. We've had problems in Clearview subdivisions back in the 90s. What do? We get proactive. We throw personnel at that problem. We start car stopping everybody. We start making arrests. We're doing search warrants. And guess what? You lock some people up, the problem goes away, and then you go on to the next problem. Because the battle never ends, but you at least got to fight the battle. And the battle's not being fought right now.
Brad, you mentioned the Clearview subdivision, and you guys are working on a shots fired call now at North Rocky Fork, I believe is the road. That was earlier this week. Right. 7th shots fired call in the Columbia area since June 21st. But this is the first one that actually falls under your guys' jurisdiction. What update can you give us on that right now?
I can tell you the theory behind that is gangbangers visiting both houses and basically shots across the street. Could be retaliation from another incident that happened like a couple weeks earlier, because that's usually the way it works. That's why victims and witnesses don't talk, because they want to then retaliate after they get shot at or get shot.
Sure.
So, and that's just kind of the way it goes. I mean, I know we're getting ready to have a meeting I think it's next week, Crime Stoppers trying to do more to get people to talk. And so I think we're having a meeting. But the problem is, until you treat everybody fair, consistent, and get that culture out of there, you're not going to be able to get these victims and witnesses to talk to you. So
you're talking, kind of answering my next question there a little bit, but what are you guys doing differently in your shots fired investigation than Columbia Police is doing in its shots fired investigations?
I don't know what the Columbia Police Department does. Most of the stuff that I tell you, and I'll preface when I talk about the Columbia Police Department, it's usually secondhand, like you're getting,
right,
from people that we know, because I'm not down there every day. But my folks are relentless. They'll go talk to everybody. I know that I saw a email late last night to where we were out in El Chaparral. We've got some people out there that we think are tied into the shooting in Clearview subdivision, and so you're going out and talking to people. The thing about it is, and this stems way back, even before I started, just so everybody can understand this, but the way people are treated in the jail helps us a great deal out on the road with the enforcement division, because they're tied together under the sheriff's department. So like when our jail staff treats people with respect, like they're a human, they talk to them. Now, obviously, when they got to take care of business, they're taking care of business, and they fight a lot in the jail. But we treat them with respect in the jail. So when we encounter them with our enforcement division out on the road, they'll talk to us and we can get information. And so I think my folks in the jail do a great job of that, which really helps the enforcement and the investigative division work with the people out on the street. Because the thought that just popped into my head, when you go back to that ceasefire initiative that the city did, where they were going out and talking to moms and grandmas of these younger people, well, guess what? We were dealing with mom and grandma 20 years ago. They don't care what their kid's doing now because we were dealing with them back then. They'll help us, but they're not taking any steps to keep them off the street or make sure they don't have a gun or that type of thing. And so it's kind of a reoccurring cycle. Think Lion King, circle of life. It's just the way it works.
Well, it brings up a question we're going to have to get to this morning, and I don't know how much time you have, but I'm going to keep you as long as I can. And that has to do with, the proactive police work being coming down hard on the criminals, or the humane side to it, which was brought up by our city council. And I want to get to that at some point. 8:21. Sheriff Carey is with us this morning, Boone County Sheriff. Let's go to John first.
Sure.
Is that 874-9390? John, you're on the Eagle. Hello.
Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Mr. Carey, Sheriff Carey. I have a couple of questions. Number one, doesn't the chief of police, he's put in position by the city manager, and the city manager is his boss, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
How many employees are employed by the county in the Joint Communications building?
0.
How come?
When you say how come, what do you mean?
Well, how come the county's not involved? Isn't that a city county? I know you had talked about, I know that Mr. Mathis decided that he was going to change the building, put it downtown, and take over control of it. And I knew you were a little upset about that you wanted to be involved, that it's part of your jurisdiction too, the county, the city. You are the chief law enforcement officer of the county. You are the only elected official law enforcement officer in the county, and I just wondered why you don't have any more say about joint communications, about employees and everything else, and get a budget to have employees working there too.
Well, I'm going to try to answer the question the best that I can, just because I don't know that there's a full understanding. We just had the sales tax issue back in April to move the Joint Communications 911 emergency management under the county. And so that passed back in April. Prior to that, it was based on a 1977 agreement back when I was 10, where all of the agencies paid into the city of Columbia, because back in 77 the city was the one with all the money, probably still are, and so county fire, the hospitals, the sheriff's department, everybody paid into the city, and so that's why those employees were always city employees. Now obviously that's going to change, John. probably around the first of the year or shortly thereafter, all of those employees down at Joint Communications are going to become county employees, and then they will actually be under the commission and an advisory board at the county level. So I hope I'm answering your question. And you're right. I did a lot of work on that 911 over about a year period of time, and we were fortunate enough for the voters to pass it in April. And we're doing a lot of things right now, getting those employees transitioned over to the county. That all takes a lot of time, as you can imagine, with sick leave, vacation, salary, pay scale. And so we're going to work on that through the rest of 2013. Right now, there is a request for a proposal out for a project manager or a consultant to manage this project that we're going to be taking on over the next 2 years, building the building and the transition. So, John, it's all in the works right now, and starting probably around the first of the year or shortly thereafter, it will all be under the county at that juncture.
So the person that hires the police chief is the city manager, and the police chief is the one that creates the budget for the officers available to take care of getting in their business, so to speak, as you said. Does the police chief hire these people? Does he create the budget, or is the budget done through the city manager?
Well, and I'm going to speculate here. I don't know. I can tell you the city manager is the boss of the police chief. That's why I would never want to be a municipal chief. I would prefer that the voters are my boss, and if they don't like what I'm doing, then every 4 years they have an opportunity to get me out of there. If they like me, I'm hoping they're going to keep me for a long time. So the city manager is the boss of the police chief. I don't know exactly how they do the budget and who's involved in that process. The bottom line is they have cops on the street. They have detectives. They can do this, what I'm talking about, already, but it's just the philosophy of the administration that's keeping them from doing that. And I hope that answers your question.
John, thank you for the call this morning. It's 8:26. Sheriff Carey with us. We're going to keep him around for a little bit longer, so we'll take a break and be back in just a moment. This is Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
Okay, it's time for another
News, talk, and the governor of Mid-Missouri. This is Wake Up Columbia with Tom Bradley on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
It's 8:28, and good morning. Phone lines 874-9390, 1-800-529-5572. Sheriff Dwayne Carey is with us this morning. We're talking about crime and violence in the Columbia-Boone County area, and we'll go to Chris on line one. Chris, good morning. You're on the Eagle.
Thank you for taking my call. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
I have a question. My comment first is I don't think you'll even start to hit the real hard crime issue until you all start profiling 100% from the statistics. But the question I have is, with everything going down in Florida, could you inform us on the actual law for the use of deadly force in a self-defense manner?
Interesting question, Chris. Thank you.
So, Chris, are you talking about if you're at the house and somebody is trying to break into your house, what right you have? Is that your question?
Did we lose Chris? I think we did.
Well, I mean, basically, I'll go with that premise. If I'm at my house and I'm a private citizen and someone's trying to break into my house, I have every right to defend myself and use deadly force. I mean, it's that simple. You cannot shoot somebody going across your yard if they're running across your yard. I mean, a lot of it is common sense, really. But if you feel, if you can legitimize the fact that you feel your life is in danger, you can defend yourself with deadly force against a perpetrator.
Yeah, as simple as that.
Yeah.
The Zimmerman trial, of course, has to do, he wasn't on his own property at the time, but you get to take the right to defend yourself anywhere you go.
That's right.
And that would include your family, I'm sure, at the same time.
Right.
That's a good question, Chris, and I appreciate that. When we come back, I want to ask you about the proactive work of the law enforcement and how much should be on the humane side, taking ice cream to kids in the neighborhood, and how much should be on busting guys that are going down the street and shaking them down, for lack of a better. We'll ask you about that next.
All right.
All right, Sheriff Carey with us this morning on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
A big business meeting with clients.
Well, I took a walk around the world to ease my troubled mind.
You're listening to Wake Up Columbia with Tom Bradley on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning and welcome to Friday. I got to tell you something. This morning I came in and upset. You don't upset the bear. And I upset Jeremy by saying it's Friday, but we're not going to have a food fest Friday because we had omelets earlier this week. But if we had food in here now, we wouldn't be able to talk to Sheriff Carey, who's with us in the studio, because I'm a great cook, and you'd be eating my food.
I would be.
And you wouldn't be able to talk.
Exactly.
So, Jeremy, you understand? It's Sheriff Carey's problem. So if you have a problem, take it up with him. He's bigger than me. Okay?
I don't want to be thrown in jail.
You mentioned earlier this morning, and it's really tough to be talking about food and having that kind of a Friday feel when we have so many serious things we're talking about with you. I appreciate you being here this morning. You mentioned earlier the circle of life, the same families that maybe the parents or grandparents of some of these people getting in trouble today, the violent crimes taking place in Columbia and Boone County. These are people that you were dealing with, the violent criminals, 10 and 20 and 35 years ago. I mean, our law enforcement agencies have been dealing with them, and you're seeing them come around again.
Right.
Which I understand, all right, the bleeding heart liberal knee-jerk reaction that some of our city council folks, our leaders, would have in saying, we need to do things for the families. Well, look, I know that we do, but we also have to be out there taking care of the hardened criminals. Right. Is there some way that, let's say, the Boone County Sheriff's Department, can you guys work on the, stop and drop these criminals at the same time that you're doing some humane work with the communities and the families?
We do. I mean, we do that already. Again, if you think about all the special events that the deputies work, when you go to the Boone County Fair, the Hartsburg Pumpkin Fest, I mean, we're out there talking with families and people. And so, that's that community-oriented policing that came back in the 80s and the 90s where everybody was, bike patrol. We do a lot of that in the summer, not this summer because we were short, but normally we'll get out into Sunrise Estates and El Chaparral and talk to the guy that's mowing his yard. And so we're doing that already. The bottom line is, at the same time you're doing that, you've got to be focusing on these, 19, 20, 21-year-old, all the way up to 55 or whatever we arrested yesterday, because these criminals are just going to continue to sell drugs. They're going to continue to peddle stolen weapons. And if you're not doing proactive law enforcement, you're not going to make a dent in that. It's different groups that you're trying to talk to make sure that they're not going down the wrong path. But the bottom line is you still have to do the drug search warrants. You still have to do the car stops. We still have to search vehicles. I mean, I'll throw this out to everybody. And it's fact to me. I don't think that you're going to be able to get it from anybody else. And what I'm going to tell you is Columbia Boone County is the number one most violent county per capita in the state of Missouri with gun violence. It's not a perception. It is fact. ATF is in town. They're at my office. They were part of the drug search warrant yesterday. There is a reason why a federal agency, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, is in Columbia, Boone County. They're here for a reason, and it's because there's so many guns in this area. There's so many shootings in this area. They have come here to help us try to solve that problem. And so people need to realize this is reality. It's going on. We can't put together task force. We don't have time to educate, start, social programs. We need to be working together as law enforcement to get these bad guys arrested, in custody, state charges, federal charges, whatever the case might be, but we've got to get them off the street.
I'm going to ask you a question. I don't tell any of my guests all the questions I'm going to ask them ahead of time. Generally speaking, I think you and I knew what we were going to get into today, but I didn't know I was going to ask this question.
Okay.
If you can't answer it, you'll just tell me I can't answer that.
Okay.
Is there a house or more than one house in Columbia and or Boone County that is a cache, that is a holding spot for weapons for national or international drug cartels?
I have heard that. I'll answer it that way. I have heard that.
Does that have anything to do with why ATF is here?
No. ATF
is here for the other reasons you just talked about.
By all means. That's what they're doing. Again, they're working out of the Boone County Sheriff's Office. We set them up with computers, everything else. They are in town because their numbers show that we are the number one most violent county by gun violence in the state of Missouri. And so they have come here to help us. We've thrown a lot of resources at them, drug units working with them, proactive guys. I threw another detective at them and then ended up having to hire a temporary guy to help the drug unit. Now, and I will say this, Columbia Police Department has one detective working with us in this group. And again, we're just trying to make cases on these guys and get them off the street. And so, the 2 search warrants we did, one in the county, one in the city yesterday, we got some people off the street. We recovered some stolen guns. We got some dope. That's what we do. And I tell my wife all that, she'll thank me for cleaning the house. That's what I do. And so that's what the Sheriff's Department does.
I feel like I'm hearing a whole different story every time we talk. On your view and what's being done right now concerning crime in Columbia and Boone County than I hear from the city of Columbia. Why does it seem to be so polar?
I don't know if it's, and I'll tell you this, Tom. Take me for what I'm worth. I mean, I come and tell you what I think. And again, I don't think it's rocket science, and it's not a case of I think if we did all this, it would solve the problem. It's a case of I know if we do this, it'll solve the problem. And so I don't know if it's politically correct. If you don't want people to think that it's not dangerous here, but it's damn dangerous. I'll tell you. I mean, when you think about, I let my wife and daughter go up to Hy-Vee, on Conley Road to get groceries late at night when that parking lot area where that homicide occurred is a big area where drug transactions take place. Guess what? They're not going up there at 9 o'clock anymore. We used to live in Southwest Columbia. Then you had the big homicide at break time. No place is safe in this community. Years ago, if you lived Southwest, down Thornbrook, Scott Boulevard, the Pines, you were safe. It all occurred up north. Doesn't happen that way anymore. It's throughout Columbia. There's no place that's safe. You can't necessarily go anywhere at 10 or 11 o'clock at night to get a gallon of milk and feel safe that you're going there.
And the shootouts that are happening at 2 in the afternoon.
Right.
I mean, it's really something. Brad?
It's kind of related to the philosophical differences you were talking about, but when we had retired Columbia police officer Liebhart in here the other day, he threw out something and he didn't know if it was true or not. Maybe you can help with this. Do you guys serve more search warrants in the city of Columbia than City of Columbia police do?
Right now, yeah. Right now. Again, ever since 2010, and I think there's going to be, not from me, but there's going to be more information coming out about that as we go, this weekend, maybe in the next month or so. And again, please don't think that we have extra people or we're trying to show anybody up. The bottom line, as I said back in January, is if we don't chase this stuff into the city because the city's not doing any of it, then we end up getting the shootings on Rocky Fork or, Fairway Meadow subdivision. It then comes back to the county. And we're not trying to push everything into the city. We're trying to solve the problem. And so by letting my guys and gals do their job, they know what my expectations are. And the expectation is we got to get these people off the street. And if it takes you going into the city to do that, then go into the city. But I want to see an arrest. I want to get some guns off the street. We want to get dope off the street, and we'll put those, bad guys in jail. And so it's working really well. My folks have their ears laid back. They're loving the fact that I support them 100%, and they can go do what they do. And again, I always give them credit. I got a great group of people that make the department look great. The drug guys, proactive enforcement, detectives, everybody, jail, as I mentioned earlier, everybody does a great job up there, and that's why things are going the way that they're going. But this problem is not a broken piece that can't be fixed. It can be fixed, but it just requires, in my opinion, again, take it for what it's worth, Tom, a philosophy change on how they're doing business down there.
The arrest you made yesterday involved a couple of guys in their 50s. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these people will just never, ever, ever, ever learn. But most of everything that's been happening for the last month or two, or it's been 18 and above, and it's 22, it's 28, it's 37, it's 53. I don't know where teen curfew came from. I just need to ask you, do you believe a teen curfew of those 17 and under, apparently, would make any difference at all in what's going on? Do you support the idea of a teen curfew?
No. And here's the thing, and I'm going to take you back in history, and some of these old CPD cops that are listening this morning are going to say, Dwayne. But back in the late 80s and early 90s, when I worked midnights back in the day, and every city cop would rush out to try to get a DWI arrest, because if you got a DWI arrest, you knew you were going to be tied up for about 3 or 4 hours, and then you were going to go to the Haymarket, Best Western, for dinner at around 3:30 or 4 in the morning, and then the rest of the night was pretty slow. That's what would happen with, and again, I'm not banging on any cops, it's human nature, but if you had a teen curfew, every cop's going to run out of the station, look for any kid that's 17 or under, because there's one on-call juvenile officer for Boone and Callaway County after hours. I met my wife 21 years ago when I arrested a 16-year-old for drunk driving. She was the on-call juvenile officer, and I met her at 4:30 in the morning down at CPD's booking room. Been together ever since.
Law love.
Yeah. There's one on-call juvenile officer. So let me play this out for you. The sheriff's department has a juvenile arrest, say around 10 o'clock. And it's going to require an interview. You've got to get the parents in there, you've got to get the juvenile officer in there, and then the interview takes place. The whole time you have that, if you have a curfew, CPD, if they pick up 10 kids, they've got to go back to the station with those kids, and they have to wait until the on-call juvenile officer is free to then say you can release to parent, or they need to go to the Juvenile Justice Center, which we call JJC. So it's going to be very similar to that drunk thing from 20 years ago, to where you're going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs looking at this kid that's 15 or 16 waiting for the one on-call juvenile officer to call you when you need to be out on the street, but you can't leave the juvenile in there in a holding cell.
And the juvenile could be a hardened criminal at a young age already, or could be somebody's, kid that just snuck out and is having a great time that night, and you're going to have to sit and wait for the juvenile officer. It could be 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, depending on how many juveniles are there.
Right. Exactly. And so, and I heard a caller a week and a half ago on yours talking about, she as a parent. And the thing about it, you really have to differentiate yourself as and I won't use normal, but, as a parent that your kids are responsible to what your directives are. Not all of these kids are responsible to the directives of their parents, and some of these parents aren't giving directives. And so you could spend that 2 or 3 hours with that kid, released to parent then goes off and does something else, kid's back on the street again. So you've just wasted 2 or 3 hours of that time. I also heard the paddy wagon idea that somebody called in that you were intrigued with. Again, maybe Chicago, New York, something like that works. But that's not going to work here, again, because the arresting officer has to stay with that juvenile until the juvenile officer releases. And so that would complicate things as well. If you think about, New York and Giuliano, he came down hard with proactive, and they cleaned up a lot in New York when, years ago when it wasn't safe to be around. And I go back to that proactive, there is risk with anything you do. When my guys went yesterday and did those tactical entries, there's risk with that. We do the best job of, getting our homework done, doing the surveillance. An example, if we know during the school year that there's a 5 and a 7-year-old in the house, guess what? We're not going to hit the house and do the search warrant until after the kid leaves and goes to school. But we're watching the house, we see him get on the bus, and then boom, we're going to hit it. Occasionally you're going to shoot dogs. We've shot dogs that have bitten deputies on search warrants. It's kind of a price of doing business. And the best example that I can give you is when you're going to have surgery, you're going to have anesthesia. Sometimes people don't wake up. It's kind of a price of doing business. In order to have the surgery, you got to go under, and it's a risk that you're going to take. It's a risk that we take. Every time we do a tactical search warrant, it's a risk that something's going to go wrong, but it's kind of a price of doing business. Now, everybody comes down on the cops, but there's doctors out there making mistakes, lawyers make mistakes. Every profession makes mistakes. It just seems like it becomes a big issue, when cops made a mistake back in 2010, if that's what they're going to call that. But ever since the Kinlock deal where they shot the dog, things have changed drastically in the philosophy down at the Columbia Police Department.
Jeremy, I need to ask on a little shop talk over here. Do we have time to take a call, or do we need to wrap it up at this point?
You can take a caller. That's fine.
Let's do that. We'll take one, and then we'll wrap it up. Brian on the line at 8:51. You're on with Sheriff Carey here on the Eagle. Good morning.
Good morning, Tom and Sheriff Carey. Just had a quick question for clarification. You mentioned that there's a pretty bad gun crime in Columbia, and my question is that legally owned guns, or is it in large illegally owned guns?
Thank you, Brian.
It would be, it's more of the gun violence, but most of those guns are illegally owned. Just like we recovered a couple, I think, stolen guns yesterday. Most of that is illegal guns that are being used in this violent crime, but the focus is more on the violent crime itself. It's not the guns that are killing people, it's people, and they're really not killing people. They injure a lot of people, but they're injuring a lot of people by shooting these guns, and most of them, though, I think are illegal guns.
I think we're all very concerned that the violence is taking place here, that is spilling out into all of our different streets at all different times of the day, that we're going to wind up having some innocent bystanders getting clipped by this thing. The fact that we're changing our lives to work around the criminals is wrong.
Right.
And I appreciate your stance. I appreciate your insight and the way that you're approaching this and the work you guys are doing, like yesterday, making the bus. Keep it up, man. Keep up the good work.
We will sure do it. It's all good.
If you need more help, I'm just going to go to a quick plug in here. One company I know that knows how to get rid of the ones you don't want, Steve's Pest Control. I'm just going to say, Sheriff Carey, now you have a friend. And when it comes to Sheriff Carey, we have a friend in the pest control business right here. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Next time, breakfast. It is 8:52. Back in a moment. Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle.
Stuff happens. And when stuff happens, you need the master of disaster relief, Service Master. Listen, if you've got fire or water damage...